okay? You playing corpse or you putting the blinds on the dusties? I thought you were a deader for sure.
In the, standalone single player sense. So, I am going to comment on the game as I play it, and I will probably maybe start to edit a playthrough, or who knows, maybe I'll edit a whole playthrough, in which I go over maybe some of the more important aspects of the game, and explain what is going on, and highlight the points of it which I think are really tremendous peaks in not just video game storytelling, but honestly storytelling in general. So, the premise is pretty bare bones at this point. We wake up amnesiac. Mort asks that I can't remember my own name. Next time you spend a night in this burg, he says, right? I think this is a pretty good game to play in the ASMR format because the music is pretty ambient, the sounds are pretty ambient, and it could be a pretty interesting auditory landscape or soundscape for sure. The game sort of relaxes me. I always, find myself playing it at night, of course. Usually listening to ASMR, although now I cannot. Mort informs us that we are locked in a mortuary, which makes sense. It looked like I was being brought in to be incinerated or cremated. So yeah, if you are into any sort of like pen and paper role-playing game, storytelling and whatnot, I mean, Planescape Torment is the best campaign ever written. I believe that very firmly. It's the most interesting and it's the most well executed for sure. Yeah. Baldur's Gate, great. Baldur's Gate is a much better game in terms of the mechanics and interactability, but in terms of campaigns that are written for purpose of consuming a narrative, Planescape takes the cake. One of the highlights here that will be quite an interesting motif and storytelling or narrative element of the game. Something more just mentioned, which is that the protagonist, who we'll just refer to as the protagonist, us, we are covered in scars, and the way they're depicted is pretty grotesque and pretty vivid, mostly intentional, of course. Here he says the carvings on my chest aren't too bad, but the ones on my back. And he goes on to say that I have a tattoo gallery on my back. Written in scars. He says they come with directions. I know you feel like you've been drinking a few kegs of Styx wash, but you need to center yourself. The capitalizations are intentional. Among your possessions is a journal that'll shed some light on the dark of the matter. Farrod can fill you in on the rest of the chant if he's not in the dead book already. And then he goes on to read a passage on my back which instructs me not to lose a journal, which, what do you know? I don't currently have a journal, so we didn't do a very good job of that. I'm sipping on oolong tea, by the way, and chewing gum. It's actually very high quality tea from a spice store which gets fresh imports. So I feel like a real asshole chewing this with gum, kind of sullying the tea a bit for the ASMR. I will spit this out soon though. More goes on to say that it looks like I have enough journal penned on my body. It's a funny retort. And I don't know if so one of the very interesting aspects of the game is that we know nothing, and that is a part of the campaign. It's been done before, but it's about to evolve in quite a wacky and interesting fashion. So I'm doing AFK bandits on the other monitor. Mort then instructs me to go look for a key on one of the corpses, which I will.
Done.
I believe I can coax one off here. I won't make too big a deal on the small stuff here. Mort instructs us that he is special dead, which is quite true. Many dead in the Dungeons & Dragons Forgotten Realms, more broadly, universe, multiverse, is there are many types of dead which are quite brain dead, and Mort is definitely not one of them. Being a floating skull is quite peculiar, even amongst a city as interesting as where we are now, Sigil, which is a part of, not part of the primary material plane. Is it the primary material? Sorry, I had to research a lot of this for a campaign I ran once, but I won't speak too much about it because clearly I forgot it and I don't want to misinform you.
Damn. Damn.
Excellent. So, one of the elements of this game that is going to become very intriguing is this concept of you interacting with what appears to be past selves of you, whether that's a literal incarnation of you, or if you just suffer from repeated amnesia, you get the impression very quickly that, who's informing you, writing messages on your back, well, it was you, right, before you lost your mind, because it seems like this happens to you repeatedly, and that is quite a jarring storytelling component to hit you with at first, and that's quite interesting. It's rather creepy, and as you will continue to understand more about these past selves that have, shaped your future so much so that you feel like you're interacting with them despite them having passed already, you examine, I guess, the core of what the game is getting at, which is human nature, and what could change the nature of, someone, a person. And, it's quite a lot to be drawing from a silly DOS game at the end of the day. Maybe it's not so silly, right? I'm not claiming that it's anything necessarily profound, but to me, it has sparked some, profound thoughts that are profound to me. Maybe not necessarily directly through the game, but it has led me to contemplate certain things over time, which are very interesting. Mainly about life, the human condition and death, most importantly, because there was a whole lot of death in this game. Refusing to accept it, and things we'll do to actively avoid it at the expense of others. So yeah, a game worth sticking around for if I can edit it well, for sure. Getting back to the game here, Mort informs us that we should not be too keen on interacting with people, or we'll be seen back in the dead book quite soon. And I'm going to trust him on that one, because clearly something is going on here. And I don't want to be in a mortuary that I was just wheeled into, right? I think they might just hit me over the head and finish the job, at worst. It's quite interesting that Mort presents himself immediately as someone to trust. Not exactly sure I should from the protagonist's perspective, but he seems pretty authentic at the very least.
Updated my journal.
And here we are going to meet our first character with dialogue. A pretty excellent introduction into the game and the amount of text it is going to have. As a man named Doll, if you could even call him a man, who is hovering over a large dome, probably the dead book, right? So you can reckon it's a book with the name of everyone who had died, everyone who has died. He's a very old, rotted creature resembling a man. It's not what the game says, that's my narration. Mort quite comically interrupts me and probably insinuates that I should not be talking to random authoritative strangers in my predicament, but for game's sake, we're gonna do it. We shouldn't be swapping the chant with sick dusties. The dusties he's referring to are the Dustmen, which are a faction, like a political, although they're not very political faction, in the city of Sigil, where I am. They are quite ominous, but they believe in the concept of true death. In the multiverse, death comes in many forms, and only one rare sliver of those forms is this quote-unquote true death, which resembles our atheistic death in humanity, right? Total nothingness. After we die, that's it. Black. Not even black, right? So they strive for that in a world of eternal cycles and promote it, and part of their process is constructing these very odd, grotesque mortuaries, ensuring that all the dead be cataloged, right? So it is their purpose to see them to what they think is the truth. Maybe you'll notice, I don't know, narratively, there's something interesting going on there. He says that he's never known me and refers to me as Restless One, so he does know me, but, perhaps doesn't, I don't want to say understand me. I'm sure it's a little bit more complicated than that, but you get what I mean. course he knows of my amnesia.
Updated my journal.
I can ask him various questions. He tells me that I am in the mortuary. He informs me that this life, my life, is not real, that they are shadows, flickering of what life once was. So, okay, and there you go. He immediately starts preaching about true death. True death is non-existence, state of devoid of reason, of sensation, of passion, purity. I suppose it is quite pure. Sounds like oblivion. Why would anyone want that? Is it worse than remaining in the shadows of life? I think not. Okay. Tells me about the dustmen. I just told you about them. The way he explains it is that death has forsaken those who cannot achieve true death, and their names shall never be penned in the dead book. To awake from death as you have done suggests you are one of these souls, your existence unacceptable to our faction. So, yeah, no wonder we ended up here after dying. You will learn quite interesting circumstances about our death. One, that it is no coincidence that we ended up here. And this man Farad was clearly involved with a past incarnation, and so we've already been affected by our past incarnations aside from our writing. The very fact that we ended up here is due to a deal with Farad when I was a previous, version of myself. You know, those set of memories before I was washed up the river Styx, as they call it. How exactly that happens, I won't spoil exactly, but clearly it has something to do with death and life and death. I realize these parts are going to be quite long if I go through all of this, but my god. I will have to try to be smart about it. I don't want to oversaturate my channel with Planescape in the midst of a lot of my primary viewers being RuneScape viewers.
Updated my journal.
I ask him if he knows who I am, and he says he knows scant a little of me. He says he knows little more of those that have journeyed with me, and who are now lying in his keeping, suggesting that my past incarnations had partners who are now dead, probably as a result of me. So, okay, that doesn't sound very great of us. Something interesting. The reason I pointed out the caps, of course, is whoever wrote those tattoos on my back seemed pretty unhinged, and I guess they'd have to be carving out entire sections of my flesh, though it wasn't stupid, right?
Updated my journal.
He informs me that there is a woman in the memorial hall below. Okay. Yep, so already let's track here. So we have seen quite a bit happen through what I've talked you through and what we kind of learned from Dolomite tattoos. And we have crossed 1, 2, 3 rooms. It is quite a dense game.
Done.
Okay, up on the second floor, it seems like we're at the incinerator. Let's pick up this this charcoal charm. Okay. Contact the necromancer responsible for raising contractual worker 42. Seems like they hire necromancers for raising the zombie workers that they have doing chores, which is interesting that they'll utilize forms of death that they look down upon and see as failed. Okay, good. We're just gonna avoid her, but we will check out the incinerator for you. Quite interesting considering we were headed towards it.
All right.
So before leaving, oh right, these are the runes that I can expect. So, examine the skeleton carefully. This is a good example of the game showing you some of the more non-combat solutions you're going to be working with, where I examine the armor, study the symbols. Almost unconsciously, you let your gaze relax as you look at the symbols. After a moment, the symbols cease shifting and resolve into a trail of runes that run up and down the breastplate. Strangely enough, the interlocking patterns of runes reminds you of chains, and with that thought, you suddenly recall that these runes are some of the warding enchantment. So, yeah, kind of a lot of writing for talking to a brain-dead skeleton. You can see that you are rewarded for these non-combat solutions at a much higher rate. Because the writer who I don't want to talk about, clearly wants you to go down these paths. Okay. So we are going to head straight to Dianar and talk to her. She has quite a lovely theme. And she's definitely one of the worst crimes that you've committed that you'll learn about.
You. What is it that brings you here? Have you come to see firsthand the misery you have wrought? Perhaps in death I still hold some shred of use for you, my love.
Do I know you? So she also knows that I suffer from this condition, clearly. Do you know who I am? She informs me that death rejects me. I am the one who dies many deaths. These deaths have given the knowing of all things mortal, and in your hand lies the spark of life and death. Those that die near you carry a trace of themselves that you can bring forth. And we get that impression that she was one of those people. So people like me, people who are subject to this same sort of eternal torment, I either bring it out of them or they are attracted to me in some sort of symbiosis. But at the end of the day, much like Elliot and Mr. Robot, I am kind of the puppet master in the middle who is really responsible for a lot of this trickle-down negativity
Updated my journal.
and tragedy. she informs me that I can leave. I will honestly inform her that I am in danger. And she says she will aid me despite, despite what I've done. She informs me that there are portals, which is one of the more interesting things, and she informs me that I need a key. She says portals will reveal themselves when you have the proper key. Unfortunately, these keys can be almost anything. This is a very interesting part of the game here. An emotion, a piece of wood, a dagger of silvered glass, a scrap of cloth, a tune you hum to yourself. So, yes, keys are so abstract, and we'll learn more about this, that despite the fact that there are portals quite literally everywhere, the keys are so specific that, the majority of them will never be found. And sometimes they can be quite unattainable, despite perhaps knowing where to look or what to look for. I have learned much when I traveled with you, and what you have lost I have retained. I have not divulged all that I know to you. My sight is clear whilst you fumble in the darkness of a spark of thought. And what is it your sight sees that I do not? That time itself relaxes its hold as the chill of oblivion slowly claims us. Glimpses of things yet to come swarm across my vision. I see you, my love. I see you as you are now. And I see what lies ahead of you. It ripples through the plains, stemming outwards from this point. Shall I speak of what I see? Yes, please do, Dianara, because I'm quite flummoxed here. She demands that I promise that I will return. I will authentically make a promise that I will do what I can. So I will go with 5. I will do what I can. I'll be legit here.
This is what my eyes see, my love. Unfettered by the shackles of time, you shall meet enemies 3, but none more dangerous than yourself in your full glory. They are shades of evil, of good, and of neutrality, given life and twisted by the laws of the plains. You shall come to a prison built of regrets and sorrow, where the shadows themselves have gone mad. There you will be asked to make a terrible sacrifice, my love. For the matter to be laid to rest, you must destroy that which keeps you alive and be immortal no longer. I know that you must die while you still can. The circle must come to a close, my love. You were not meant for this life. You must find that which was taken from you and travel beyond, into the lands of the dead.
So great. It looks like the main objective of this game is not to save myself, but to end my life. Again, quite unique.
Updated my journal.
I do not doubt your ability to rise from the dead. I do believe that every incarnation weakens your thoughts and memories. You claim you have lost your memory. Perhaps it is a side effect of countless deaths. If so, what more will you lose in successive deaths? If you lose your mind, you will not even know enough to realize that you cannot die. You shall truly be doomed. So this is an interesting point. Clearly, our past incarnations are the only reason why I even know what's going on, aside from Mort. And some of the few interactions I've had in the mortuary, if you take Dianara away, if I weren't sent to the mortuary, and I wasn't crazy enough in my past selves to literally write all over myself via scars, then I would pretty much have no clue what was going on, and I'd be lost in a decrepit city, or even possibly incinerated. So yeah, that's quite a scary thought. despite your immortality, it adds a lot of weight to your death, as clearly your amnesia at least gives the illusion that your consciousness has also died and been reborn. So you really do suffer a real death each time via loss of your memory. That's it's an interesting. It's a pretty interesting thing to contemplate. To some extent, this is the horror of things like dementia, amnesia, etc. The loss of memory is, maybe indistinguishable from the launch of self, identity, consciousness, you. In the philosophical sense, you. She also informs us that this has been going on for quite a long time. Okay.
I shall wait for you in death's halls, my love.
Mort informs me that I drifted out there. Clearly he did not, he was not aware of Dayanara. Alright. So let's make our way out. We're gonna travel south. Oh boy, okay, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we need to find the key. I don't know if that's found on somebody that I have to kill here.
I'm hurt.
Go for it. Oh boy, don't want to lose our memory immediately here. So let's, yeah, okay, yikes.
All right.
Scum. Sure, why not? Did you see that?
And there it is. And that is how you play the game.
All right.
Real champ. Excellent. Some shades failed to find me. And here we are in the city of Sigil. We see some non-Euclidean geometry there, which will be described to us.
All right.
And here we are. We can talk to Box, but we won't. Names inscribed. Obsidian walls and obelisks. So, yep, kind of looking like Sigil is a shit heap. Very, very odd place. It is run by the Lady of Pain, who's kind of close to a deity of this place. She has the ability to warp reality quite dramatically and create her own little realities, her own, planes called mazes that she can send anyone to. It's essentially a prison. And these are her workers, the Daboses, who do not speak a spoken language but use an archaic insignia language. And they can be seen building and whatnot all over the city. They remain largely uncontested because the Lady of Pain will fuck you immediately tells us not to interact with them. They're janitors of the Lady of Pain. They float around breaking, fixing, and patching up Sigil according to her whims. They're worse than corpse flies. You can't swat them though, or the lady'll get upset. She runs the city. You'll know if you see her. She's got blades around her face. She's about the size of a giant, and she floats off the ground just like these guys. Nobody knows much about her. She doesn't speak much. All you need to know is that you don't want to make her angry. If you see her, my advice is to run. So yeah, even in the actual pen and paper Planescape books, it is stated that she pretty much nothing is known about her. It's not even known what she is. She's not a god in the Forgotten Realms multiverse, I don't believe. Or I'm pretty confident, rather, that she's not. Okay, so let's see if we can try to interact with them and understand what they're saying. Spoiler alert, we can't dig it out of my unconscious. It's gonna be another interesting aspect is you will see that while we have forgotten a lot of stuff, some information has compounded over my incarnations, and I have quite a lot of wisdom that could be dug up, right? Lifetimes of wisdom, right? Eons, possibly. Terrifyingly. Okay. It seems like it is extremely patient throughout your discussion, giving you easy sentences to translate. Okay, so it wants to interact with me. Maybe you can help me. Who are you? I am a Davos. What are you doing? I attend to my duties. Can you tell me about the Lady of Pain? A lone symbol of bears above the Davos' head. This one shows a metallic female mask with blades coming out of the sides. Just looking at the ghostly image makes you uncomfortable. I had other questions. I suppose that's it.
I feel stronger.
Oh, that's great. Let's take care of that here. Excellent. Okay. I guess we'll end this with some dialogue with Mortuary.
Hey, what's eating you, Chief?
Can you tell me a little bit about Sigil? It's a ring-shaped city that's squatting on top of an infinitely tall spire in what some claim to be the center of the plains. This is true, by the way. I know because I've read the books written by God. No, but really it is true. Of course, how could it be at the top of an infinitely tall spire, and how could the city even be at the center of the plains raises some questions. Anything else? Well, it's called the City of Doors, mostly because there's a lot of invisible doors that lead in and out of it, just about any arched door frame, barrel, bookshelf, or open window might be a portal under the right conditions. It all depends on if you have the key to open it. Yeah, we learned a bit about this. Anywhere, Chief, literally anywhere. Any place that you could think of, there's a portal there. That's the way Sigil's so popular across the plains. And we actually learned why portals are open everywhere. It was actually a very powerful anarchist witch who took it upon herself to create quite a bit of chaos one day. Quite an interesting connection to globalization, I guess, if you wanna sprawl it out. I mean, one day, not one day, but over time, I suppose we had quite a similar effect with transportation, diversification, the loss of isolationist methods of governing, an economy, especially, which really leads to all these other things.
Updated my journal.
you should try and root out this Farod wherever he set up Kip. You wouldn't have had those directions tattooed on your back if he didn't have some inkling of what was up with you. One of the locals around here has to know where he is. Okay, good point. How did you die, or? No idea, Chief. I kind of forgot when I died. Can't say I blame myself much. At least there was something waiting for me after I died, even if it is life as a floating skull. I mean, it could have been worse. What has happened to your body? I don't know, alright? It's just gone. But I don't think I miss it. Because I'm happy just the way I am, and I don't need your half-wit judgments or snide remarks, alright?